May I come in, sir?
Please do. Please come in.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Please
sir.
Please take
Thank
a
you
seat.
so much, sir.
Ms. Archita Mittal, please briefly introduce yourself to the board.
Yes, sir. Sir, my name is Archita Mittal. I was born in Hisar, but I'm currently staying in Faridabad. I did my graduation from Shriram College of Commerce, New Delhi. Post which I pursued my postgraduate diploma in management from Indian Institute of Management, Lucknow. I worked for a year with Deloitte in the electric vehicle sector. Post which I started preparing for UPSC. In the last civil services examination, I've been selected for Indian Police Services. And apart from academics, I also like playing badminton. And I've been playing badminton since my childhood, and I've also played at the state tournaments.
Wonderful, wonderful. Please, ma'am.
Yeah, so Archita, you've been selected for IPS.
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
not happy with IPS.
Ma'am, I'm very happy, and I think it is a very prestigious services. But ma'am, I would like to work in sectors of education, healthcare at the grassroots with respect to implementation of policies and policy making, and hence I've applied again, and I'm targeting to become a part of Indian Administrative Services.
Okay. So Archita, you are born on 26th December. What is the relevance of this day in history?
Ma'am, on 26th December, a tsunami struck India for the first time in 2004. And even recently, 26th December has been designated as Veer Bal Divas. So I think these are the two significant.
And is it the birth anniversary of some other people? Other than, I mean, you are a younger person, some historians or some people in the history?
I'm not aware of. I'll check it once.
You come from Haryana.
Yes, ma'am.
So Haryana is very, I'll say, famous or infamous for gender discrimination, practices which are against women, girls.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you talk of some certain practices and then how do you think it can be done?
Ma'am, I think some of the gender discrimination practices that were prevalent were related to female feticide in the state. And I think a sense of patriarchy as well among the society. I think this was also reflected in the child sex ratio back in 2011. But I think various steps have been taken afterwards. A national scheme of Beti Bachao Beti Padhao Andolan was undertaken, and we are seeing change. And especially with
Do you think that the skewed sex ratio now it has improved?
as compared to 2011, yes, ma'am, because last year National Family Health Survey reflected a much better picture. The child sex ratio was somewhere around 930 per 1,000 birth of male childs. But I think more progress can be there in the future.
If you look at that ratio, it is still like
Yes,
that in
ma'am.
Delhi itself.
Yes,
Which
ma'am.
is a cosmopolitan city.
In Delhi, I think the sex ratio is skewed because of migration, and with respect to migration, I think more of male population is there due to migration. That's why I think the ratio is there in Delhi.
Another practice is honor killing. So, I mean, if you say killing, killing is killing. There's already a law if you say if anybody is killed, murder, section 302. But still there is a something going on to bring a law. Already there are 2 bills which have been drafted to deal with honor killing. So why this practice is still persist?
I think this is honor killing is.
How it is different than to other murders?
Ma'am, with respect to honor killing, I think it is different from other murders because there is sense of honor of the family, of the caste, and of the village that is associated, and people are not allowed to take their own individual choices. So I think that's.
So in honor killing, do they kill only the girl or the boy also?
Ma'am, I think both of them. Both are murdered as per the instances that have been there. Yes.
Are you aware of those 2 bills which have been drafted?
No, ma'am. I'm not aware of those bills. I'll definitely read into it.
Which are on. One has been done by National Commission for Women, and
Okay.
another is by Law Commission of India.
Okay. I'll read about it.
Achha, so you have studied accountancy and commerce.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's ask some questions on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you aware of companies?
Yes, ma'am.
of 2013,
Yes, ma'am.
and there was one previous one,
1956.
56. Yeah, what is the major difference between these two acts? Why that was replaced?
Ma'am, I'm not aware of why it was replaced, but
There must be some reason. If
Yes,
it is
ma'am.
going on, doing well. I mean, we are still doing with 1860 laws. So if 1956 law was perfect or there was no reason, there must be some reason. That is why not only amendment has been made, it's totally replaced.
ma'am, I think I'll have to read, but if you may allow, I'd like to take a more calculated guess.
And you
to
have done your BCom in 2017, which
Yes,
was a
ma'am.
very relevant
Yes,
time
ma'am.
to study.
So I studied the
Yeah.
13 law only at that
Yes.
time. Yes,
And
ma'am.
then understanding the reason, what are the major changes which have been brought in this act.
I'm not aware right now.
Okay, while you was doing your BCom course, have you studied the law of sale of goods act?
No, ma'am.
You have studied law of contract?
No, ma'am.
Contract, you have. Indian contract.
Yes, ma'am. I studied it for appearing for CPT exam for CA, but not under BCom. So that's why I'm not aware of the legal provisions of that.
Are you aware of partnership form?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us.
Partnership is represented under Indian Partnership Act, wherein people who come together to form a partnership, and they also have joint plus joint liability as well. I think this is
There's some specific terminologies actually.
okay.
You're not much aware of it.
The basics I'm aware, but not the technical
And
definition.
when we talk of law, there are very specific words which we have to use. Okay. So then let's move to some other area. Okay, you have already been selected and now part of the system in a way.
Yes.
What do you think have been various steps have been taken or various programs and policies for the women in parliament? Talk some specific things which have been done.
Ma'am, with respect to women empowerment, firstly, if we talk about about economic sphere, to increase the women participation, I think there are laws such as Equal Remuneration Act. The labor codes also permit women to work in night, that have to become more enabling. We have Factories Act, which provide for separate washrooms. So I think these are some of the steps for economic.
Is that what you said?
Under Factories Act, it has been mandated to provide separate washrooms, to provide time for rest, and so I think these are enabling provisions which help the women.
Factories Act is very old, 1948, right? So that was done. Even creches provision is there in 1948
maternity.
Act with regard to washrooms, working hours, everything is already there. I'm asking recent some policies and programs of the government of India. I'm not asking even about the law. Even you talk about Equal Remuneration Act, it's from 1976, right? So talk of something latest which have been done in the past 3-4 years.
In the past 3-4 years, firstly, women have been allowed permanent commission in the army. I think this is one of the steps. Then secondly, there have been talks, though it has not been implemented, but to provide women reservation in the parliament.
Is it there already?
No, not yet. There have been talks, but I think at party levels.
So it's going on for 30-40 years. It's a very recent, yeah.
Not able to recall.
Okay. So, are there any women who are in some prominent positions in the government, in ministries, in Supreme Court, and other places?
Women, ma'am.
Any names?
Ma'am, in the executive, we have Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman and Ms. Smriti Irani. In judiciary, we have B.V. Nagarthana, Justice B.V. Nagarthana.
That's all.
In judiciary, I'm able to recall her name. Then,
In the present, there are 3 women right now.
okay. I'm not aware of the other 2 women right now. Then the SEBI is also being headed by Madhavi Puri Butch. And even at present, the United Nations representation from India is also Ruchira Kamboj. So I think these are the names that come from
What about President of India?
President. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chitra, there's a lot of talk of trade deficits and, all that happening across nations. And then there are FTA negotiations. But at the same time, most countries are becoming insular as far as trade goes. They want to protect their sort of markets. So how effective do you think free trade agreements are or will be in promoting bilateral trade?
I think free trade agreements would be very useful in this case. I think in the past, what have been observed is that when the free trade agreements were being drafted, they were not promoting mutual interest, but however, interest of a few countries, as we have seen with the FTAs with ASEAN or Singapore. But I think the FTAs that are coming up right now, for example, the recent FTAs that have been signed with UAE, for that matter, I think they promote the interest of both the countries, promote trade, investment. So I think it is a way that it is drafted, keeping in interest the mutual interest of both the countries.
So it should be, if that is done, then you think it's the way forward, right? Then, but you haven't opted for the foreign service at all. You don't want to go into the foreign service.
Ma'am, I think it is a very prestigious service, but I want to work in India on ground, so that's why I've not opted for it.
But you still need to be aware of what's happening on the international front and what's happening in Delhi today. Some meeting is taking place, a G20 meeting.
Ma'am, I've not read the newspapers, but I think it is the G20 foreign ministers
meeting. So what is G20? Are you aware?
G20 is an intergovernmental organization which consists of 19 countries and EU. And this year, India has been given the chair to lead it.
Why was it set up? Why did the G20 start at all? Or why was it established?
Ma'am, it was established in 1999, but why was it established? I'm not what.
To deal with the Asian economic crisis, Southeast Asian crisis. And when did it, what happened in 2008 then?
Ma'am, I think in 1999 it was mostly led by finance ministers, but in 2007-8, due to the global financial crisis, the head of the countries met for the first time. Yes.
Went up to summit level. And since then has been meeting regularly. So what is the theme for India's presidency?
Ma'am, the theme for this year is one Earth, one family, one future. Sarva Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
And one last question. Do you know what is blue economy?
Blue economy.
Why is it becoming more and more important and being spoken about?
Ma'am, blue economy would mean the economic benefits that are derived from marine and ocean resources.
Like what?
For example, benefits in terms of the fishery sector, marine sector, with respect to trade and communication. Recently, India is also is going to explore polymetallic nodules in central Indian Ocean.
In the seabed. Yeah. Right. So that's also becoming. So these are all a lot of potential areas for exploiting the resources, marine resources, so to speak. And climate change. Okay, last question. Climate change is happening. They said this February has been the hottest in the last 122 years. So is it real? Is climate change real, or is it just being spoken about?
I think it is real because I think everyone is also feeling the impact of heat. Usually February was not so hot. Yes, but now we are seeing that the duration of winters is decreasing. The change is there.
Is it man-made or is it natural?
Ma'am, I think this climate change is man-made, and yes, ma'am, due to the
So what do men need to do? Men meaning humankind?
Ma'am, I think adopt a more sustainable lifestyle. At the country level, we are transforming from more coal-based energy to more renewable-based energy. And I think for individuals as well, a program called Lifestyle for Environment. I think if we integrate small steps, I think we can work upon averting the climate change.
Good. Thank you.
Ms. Archita, so you have done commerce and plus management in PGDM in management. So if I was supposed to ask you, what are the major concerns that the global investors raise before they put their money in India? So would you name some 2-3 very important?
So I did not understand the question.
So major concerns that the global investors raise before they invest or put their money in India.
I think some of the things that come to my mind would be firstly the repo rate in US versus India, because the rate is increasing in US and hence it's becoming more favorable. Secondly, I think understanding the fundamentals of the economy, the growth rate, inflation that we are seeing. Third, how deeply India would be impacted by the global slowdown that is taking place. I think this is also something investors would like to see. And the debt level of the country, because after COVID, the debt levels of India has increased. So are they sustainable or not? I think these are the things.
So do you think Indian public debt is sustainable?
At the present level, yes, it is sustainable because the interest rate that we are paying on the debt is much lower as compared to the growth of our economy. So till the time the growth of the economy is higher as compared to the interest that we are giving, I think it is sustainable till that.
So do you have an idea of how much share of our revenues goes for interest payments every year?
So of the overall budget of 45 lakh crores, 1/4 of the budget goes towards interest payments currently.
So do you think that is a smaller amount and is sustainable?
The interest, so I think it's a huge amount, definitely, because the amount could have been used in the development of the country that we are paying for interest right now.
So coming to the principal payments. So whenever we talk about public debt management, so it is not just the interest management. That's what the countries do mistake. As long as they think they can manage interest, they think they can manage public debt. So that is what we call it as debt trap. At some point when the interest rates rise, most countries get into this issue. So another thing from your commerce and accountancy background, so how do you apply this price elasticity of demand in the external front, imports and exports?
I think this can be applied in the sense that right now what we are observing is the price of fossil fuels and petroleum is increasing, but the demand is inelastic. So since the demand is inelastic, we have to import no matter how the price increases. I think this is how our imports are increasing. However, at the same time, the exports of India are elastic in nature. So if the price of our commodities increase, there's a chance that the demand would decrease. So I think this is how the elasticity can be applied with respect to imports and exports.
Good. So one more thing, using your management science aspects. So how do you think the centralization and decentralization thing working in India? So do you think the public institutions are moving towards more of centralization or more of towards decentralization?
So I think the public institutions are moving towards decentralization. I think this can be said in the form of 73rd and 74th Amendment that India came up with. It led to more decentralization of democracy in our country, and even with respect to whenever we pass any law, so there is a pre-legislative consultation that takes place with the public. So where the people have the right to voice their concerns at that stage. So I think this is how decentralization is happening in our country.
Okay. Just one question and you take 1 or 2 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Supposing you are in the IPS, okay? Or you are even as a DM and you have got somebody sitting in your office and you know the person is a criminal, he has been arrested and brought before you. And there's a crowd of about 200 people outside demanding that he be handed over to them for some heinous crime, child rape or something, I mean whatever you have. What are you going to do? Your inner voice tells you, hand over this fellow to the criminals and let him, the crowd, and let them do full justice. Similar scenarios, encounters, right, of hardened proven hardened criminals, such as what happened in UP, a couple of cases, and somewhere near Hyderabad also, I believe, right? The crowd lynched the fellow and the policemen were fitted. So what is your take on this? Think for a couple of seconds and give me a reasoned answer. What are you going to do about it?
Okay, sir. So the crowd is waiting outside to
Lynch the
lynch
fellow.
him. So, if I may speak.
Absolutely.
So I think giving the criminal to the public is not a solution at all, and I think it will be by responsibility to ensure that firstly there is rule of law in the district. The criminal should be kept inside, and I think I'll personally go and talk to the crowd, try to like make people listen the concerns, and to ensure that people also follow the rule of law, to follow the judicial process that we have. And it may take have to take some strict actions, maybe with respect to using water cannons, the non-lethal weapons, but it has to be ensured that the criminal also is given a proper fair trial and judicial process, to ensure that the punishment that is given to him is fair. At the same time, the people do not take law in their own hands.
Okay. Just one more question. You are living in Faridabad, right?
Yes, sir.
How do you explain Faridabad falling from grace, if I may say so, while Gurugram rose so fast and so prosperously?
So I think this happened firstly due to setting up of Maruti plant in Gurgaon, which led to a lot of automobile sector's growth. Then construction of IGI airport, Indira Gandhi International Airport. Then also construction of very large scale and good infrastructure in Gurgaon, which attracted a lot of MNCs over there. So I think these are some of the few reasons why there's a lot of industrial as well as service growth in Gurgaon. And in Faridabad, the infrastructure growth has not been at such a fast scale.
You have not talked about the housing complexes which came up.
Okay.
There was the Delhi itself was having such poor housing infrastructure. So Gurgaon came up with an excellent private sector involvement in housing societies. Anyway, excellent. So this brings us to the close.